Hey, I'm finally back! You know me, Jake, at Shovel Media, reviewing music. Wait, that's not what I used to say. What did I used to say? Ow! It's the internet's laziest music geek,
Jake the Knee Swantana.
No, that's not it. Ow! I know. My name is Jake and I like music. So, it has been a really long time, nearly 2 years since I've made a video on this channel. There's a lot of reason for that, mostly because of laziness, because I've had different streaks of not being super busy, but like I got super busy and then just didn't get around to it, and then I was doing the whole like, well, I haven't made one since then, so why start now? You know, sort of a thing. And yeah, and then I got married, and now I'm in an apartment instead of at my parents' house, and so there's like all kinds of stuff. That's why this wall is white and not blue. That's why this is a different wall. Yeah, it's the same wall, it's just white now. I might change up the setup, but I thought, like, I don't know, this is a clear spot. I have a chair here that's pretty cool. I have my turntable right here and records. So, thought it was like a music-y corner to start a video in for music. But, as the title would lead you to believe, accurately I might add, this is my top 10 albums of 2018. And without further ado, I'm going to get into it. I'm going to start with my honorable mentions, albums that I enjoyed, didn't connect with enough to put on my top 10, but I wanted to mention honorably. So, number one, these are in no particular order as honorable mentions. So, my first one on my honorable mentions is Vulgar in the Chapel by Margo and the Nuclear So-and-Sos. And what I have to say about it is a great low-key acoustic album. Really, I'm starting to dig Margo and the Nuclear So-and-Sos. I hadn't really listened to them much in the past, even at the point of learning of them. Didn't listen to them right away, and so just now getting into them, checking out their older stuff, and now this album that just came out last year. Definitely give it a listen. It's an enjoyable album, and so is their older stuff, so check them out if you haven't already. Route 1 by Sigur Rós is my next one of my honorable mention. Again, those Icelanders have made another gorgeous, atmospheric album. It's very on par with their other albums. They really haven't disappointed me with it. The accompanying 360 video that goes through the countryside of Iceland, which I think is most of Iceland, is just like big, vast, rural-looking, mountainous, amazing landscape. So check out that as well. It's super cool. Like I said, it's a 360 video, so like as the car is moving, you can like pan around and check it out. It's really cool. My third one in my honorable mentions is Everything Is Love by the Carters. Should I really be surprised that Beyonce and Jay-Z would make an album with a bunch of bops on it? I mean, it just really supplied me with that good summer music to lift the spirits, you know? I even go back to, I'll probably continue going back to at least a few of the tracks, just to, energize, just to get excited for things that, like, whether it's working out or whatever. It's a great album. It's fun, fun listen for parties and stuff like that. Tell Me How You Really Feel by Courtney Barnett. Fantastic. Honestly, I didn't give this album enough of a listen to rank it. I think of these honorable mentions, that one I'm like a little bit more suspect that would have made it to my top 10 had I really gave it a proper listen and so on. I've loved her other stuff, and so I think that this will become one of my favorites when I get around to listening to it more. But I didn't want to skip its inclusion in this video because what I've listened to it has been fantastic, been grade A quality. I really enjoyed that last one she did with Kurt Vile. It's just really solid. But anyway, okay, so now let's get into the top 10. Number 10 is Golden Hour by Kacey Musgraves. So the story of me getting into this album is came under recommendation from a friend that whenever we talk We always discuss music, and what's funny is it turns out my sister is actually really into Casey Musgraves and has been, and so this album kind of was, I should have been under my nose this whole time, but I guess it just wasn't until my other friend mentioned it. I was very delighted in listening to it. It's a really good album. It is genred a country album, but offers much else besides the country aspect of it. It does have a nice homage to like the classic country quality to it, but it has elements of other things, such as Sufjan Stevens-esque banjo. It has these digitized harmony vocals in certain parts, certain songs that really add this interesting dimension. Also some alt-rock sort of structure to the different tracks, and really just a lovely production. That was something that really stood out to me on this album that I wasn't expecting, was the production throughout the whole album is just so like glistening. I really love it, and it's in its poppiest moments, it's catchy, and in its not as poppy moments, it's like heartfelt. It's really a great album. Number 9 on my list is Bambi by Hippocampus. And I did review their debut. It was one of my first reviews on this channel, and this album didn't let me down. It's a really great sophomore effort. Their sound has evolved even more. Still has that glittery production with slick riffs and smooth, polished percussive elements. It's very hooky, very grabby. They have this listenability quality to them. I think that they are here to stay on that spectrum of like indie pop. They have a really firm spot in that world. So good for them. Number 8, Thank You For Today by Death Cab for Cutie. Well, for a 9th full-length album, it's undeniably still fresh. I was concerned at first listen and going into this, knowing that this was a new era of sorts for Death Cab, being that it's post Chris Walla's departure, but Ben Gibbard's writing is unscathed, and they have another seasoned producer at the helm, so it's not lacking in production either. It's a really solid album. This album also struck a personal chord with the song You Moved Away for me, because a close friend of mine moved away at the time of this album being released, and so it kind of felt like a song. It's like, I wish I could have wrote this song. That like it really encapsulated a feeling for me. Also, 60 and a Punk felt very sober. It really presented what I feel is the realism, the reality of being an aged rock and roller. I mean, Ben Gibbard isn't old yet, but as time goes by, it's the inevitable, and just kind of feels like maybe he's being introspective in that way. So it really that song hit hard for me too. The other songs are really fun. Gold Rush, super good song. Number 7, Be the Cowboy by Mitski. So admittedly, this is the first album of Mitski's that I have gotten into a lot, that I've actually listened to the whole thing and really enjoy the majority of the songs. I do love the album from track 2 onwards, but if it weren't for Geizer's illustrious, saturated tone being so captivating, the entire album may have ranked a little bit lower for me on my list, but it probably still would have been included on my top 10. It's a very solid album. It's just like Geyser is so vampy and love it. It just got such substance to it. Mitski has this songwriting style that scratches an itch similar to that of the likes of Myra. At least that's where my mind went with it. She has this like similarity in that there's like short, typically a subtle bounce to her songs, but occasionally she will knock your socks off But you get the sense that it's when she feels it's appropriate. She knows that the song calls for it, when she knows that the moment on the album calls for it. And with Geyser being that for this album, it's an amazing opener. You want to listen to the whole album at that point. Number 6, Sun on the Square by The Innocence Mission. Normally, I'm not one to favor a band sticking very, very close to a particular sound because it usually means that their albums start to feel a little stale in a way. But Innocence Mission's formulaic style is more of a reliable quality than a predictable quality. I would add, too, that if you listen to the instrumentation in the album, they have become more ambitious as time has gone on. And this album being that culmination, being the most recent release of theirs, you can really sense that. You can really tell that on this 10th album of theirs that as musicians, Karen Paris and company, their technical ability is very commensurate to their years of playing. It makes sense with where they are in their career in all facets. And I guess to really convey what I love about this album, I think the way I would put it is I would love to live in this album. It feels very soothing and safe, really. It has this safe quality. Yeah, it's just so calming. It's a very nice, calming album. Number 5, Untitled by Me Without You. The band's third album, Brother Sister, is one of my all-time favorite albums. And 12 years and 4 albums later, this release proves that they still got it, to say the least. I think I enjoy Pale Horses, the release before this, a little bit more, but Untitled and its companion EP of the same name packs such a punch, such a different punch than even Pale Horses had. What I really love about Me Without You is something that I value so deeply of a quality for any album is cohesion. The album, their albums always have this cohesive quality. Unlike a lot of other bands, even other great bands, they create this world and you're in it for that album. My favorite tracks on the album are Julia, Tortoises All the Way Down, and New Wine, New Skins. And just another note, if there are any Back to the Future fans, you have to check out the video for Julia. It's so cool. It's really a music video masterpiece. It's awesome. Number 4, Sister Cities by The Wonder Years. Well, I remember when this album dropped, seeing it on Apple Music, and I was thinking to myself, hey, it's that pop punk band that has the Came Out Swinging song. And it's really just such a quintessential pop punk song. It's got all like the lyrical elements of that scene. Aside from that, and maybe a handful of covers that my friend Josh did of theirs, I was a very uninitiated Wonder Years listener at the time of this album's release. As I was wide-eyed listening to Raining in Kyoto, the album opener, I read the blurb on Apple Music about the album, and what stuck with me was the phrase, embracing the dark. This album did just that. Once I was really obsessed with it, I had dove into their back catalog. What I found were very solid songs, very solid albums. But this album is just so much different for them. Very much a departure from their typical sound. It just has this grit and edge that leaves such an impression. Not to mention its powerful themes of loss, grief, and compassion. Number 3, Nearer My God by Foxing. A callback to number 8 on my list. Where did that Chris Walla go? Here. Foxing's most daring, bold, and compelling album yet has the expertise of Chris Walla producing. The apocalyptic thread woven through observational songs laced with personal experiences and thoughts on the modern world will just leave you almost wanting more. It's just such a captivating album, such an impactful album. Their debut was sharp and snappy. Their sophomore was very atmospheric and introspective. But 3 albums in, and they've made something that I feel will stand the test of time. Something that doesn't take any nostalgia-fueled motive for someone to say, yes, this is a great album. I desperately wanted to pull a review together when the album came out, but like I stated at the beginning of this video, the reason I haven't made videos has just been so busy. I really love this album, and I perhaps will revisit maybe giving it a full review. I didn't want to go on about it for too long in this video. I don't want this video to be super long, and also I didn't feel it was fair to any of the other albums, because I loved all these albums so much, and I could go on about them all, but this one in particular I have a lot of words about. Just, oof, 5 Cups? Come on. Game Shark? Okay. Anyway, moving on. Number 2 on my list, Now Only by Mount Eerie. In 2017, it was pretty well universally accepted in the music world that A Crow Looked at Me was one of the most heart-wrenching albums to ever be conceived by a human being. Approaching loss in the days before and immediately after it in such a stern, innately human way, and really devoid of hope. It just had that like bitter, stark lens that it was all realized through. Now Only is, by all intents and purposes, really the follow-up to that album. It too is extremely raw and has Phil singing in a stream of consciousness, recollection sort of style. I can't say that I know what it's like to lose a mate, but what I will say is, in my own experience, the album felt very true to the feelings following the loss of a loved one. Being catapulted into a world where they're gone, and not only did the world not stop spinning from them being gone, but it never stopped spinning at any point during their slowly fading away. And now you're just trying to catch up, trying to get your bearings after such a traumatic experience. And again, I can't even imagine how much more traumatic that would be with a mate, with someone just so extremely close to your heart. It's very jarring, and this album captures that feeling so perfectly. It feels that the songs have left Phil in an empty yet clean state, and even as the listener, though by the end of the album my heart did feel a hurt, it felt pain, it was nothing short of cathartic. The moment we've all been waiting for. All 3 of us, or how many small of a viewership I have. Number 1 on my list for the year 2018, favorite album of the year, very hard to pick. I would say it was neck and neck with Now Only, but it was really neck and neck with a few other albums too. Just a lot of great albums in 2018. Number 1, though, I have to say is God's Favorite Customer by Father John Misty. In a sense, Josh Tillman seems to have made a return to form after his gargantuanly thought-provoking pure comedy. God's Favorite Customer has a similar balancing technique of upbeat to somber songs, similar to I Love You Honey Bear and Fear Fun, nearly doing an every other pattern throughout the album of somber and sparse songs to more fleshed out and upbeat sort of driven songs. What made me pick this as my number 1 of the year is really its candid quality. To speak more to that, I heard people complaining, read different reviews of people scrutinizing it for being very brief, maybe its lyrics not digging very deep, so on and so forth. But I disagree with that, and here's why. You have to consider what the album is centered around, why it exists. This album only covers about a 3-month span of Josh's life, when him and his wife were temporarily separated, and it really wouldn't make sense for the album to be drug out and go on at length for such a short period of time that it's, in other words, discussing, and for lack of a better word, discussing. In the songs The Palace and The Songwriter, we see him turning it on himself for once, looking more introspectively, figuring what needs to be fixed with his relationship, which needs to be fixed with him and his wife, and where that line is between a muse and essentially exploitation. And Mr. Tillman, he dives into his mental health, and not necessarily to change anything about that, but just to identify things about it, to express it, really, to access that part of him. Please Don't Die felt like, to me, that it was almost a sequel of sorts to When You're Smiling in a Stride and Chateau Lobby No. 4. It's really got this love letter quality to it, that you can tell it's very much so for his wife. It's heartwarming. It's a heartwarming track on the album, especially in a time where, I mean, he doesn't approach it in a bleak way, and it's not, he's not singing really dark tunes, but they have a heart-wrenching quality. They have a sadness to them. I really love the straightforward nature of the music on the album. He still kept his signature flair, but with a marked sense of almost hurriedness, where you could tell that he really had a purpose for the songs. And really the brevity and style felt like it was the perfect vessel for its purpose. What I feel is a really good example of this was the song Disappointing Diamonds Are the Rarest of Them All, which in whole is really driving at the point of, that if everything was special, nothing would be special, and it's just kind of like a harsh reality of just life, where if everything was this big blown out thing, it just wouldn't make sense. Not everything has to be so profound and special, really, in a sense. And what really stuck out to me about that song was in his lyrics, he drew similes using grotesque comparisons to things of love, such as the lyric, like a carcass left out in the heat, this love is bursting at the seams. It's an off-putting piece of imagery, but it captures that feeling where it's like, this love is special, but does it have to be the greatest story ever told? And the answer is no, Josh. The answer is no. It doesn't have to be. Just, love in and of itself is profound, is special. And it doesn't have to be the greatest love story. I really loved it. It just felt so candid. It felt like he was just really, he's like, I wrote this song, boom, that's on the album. I wrote this song, boom. It's not like him really like chipping away this block trying to make this beautiful masterpiece that's impossibly perfect. Like Pure Comedy was just impossibly perfect. I wouldn't want him to make another Pure Comedy. It just really did something for me. It was a really fantastic album. I loved it. Number one for me. That's the end of this video. Please subscribe if you haven't. Like this, share it, do whatever you want with it. I'd like if you don't dislike it, that'd be nice, but if you disliked it, then dislike it, I guess. I'm gonna try to make more videos on this channel. My game plan is to be more realistic with it instead of trying to review everything that was coming out that I was hearing of. Basically, I'm gonna try to do like maybe 1 or 2 a month. If there are times where I have a lot of free time and there's a lot of music that I want to review, I'll do a few in a row. Hope you like this video. Comment below what your favorites were of the year. Yeah, I'd love to hear what you guys have been listening to. I know there's tons of albums that came out this year. Or not this year. Came out 2018. Okay, bye.